We are live. Are we live? I think we're live. Hey everyone, welcome. Art T Bear here, coming to you live from Hatch Hack Studios. That's my studio, my humble little studio where I draw and create from. So this is where I spend most of my time, my life, in this room. So hey, Aaron, how are you? Good morning. So coming to you live from California, Artie Bear here, and I'm a 35-year comic book veteran and of this wacky comic industry, and I'm going to use this camera here to try to personalize myself and to let you know that there is a human being here, not just that little silly icon, little caricature of me. So I'm not going to spend my whole time talking to you on the camera, but I just wanted to start off that way. I wanted to talk a little bit about IPs, and it got me thinking lately with my buddy Rob Liefeld and all the Youngblood stuff. If you haven't been listening, he lost some of his IPs, his intellectual properties, in a bad business deal. So I kind of wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about that. If there's anybody out there that's thinking of creating their own comic book or a movie script or any of these type of creative venues or ventures, hey, Arthur Brown, good morning. And and so I just wanted to kind of share some of my experience and maybe help steer some of the new guys that are thinking of doing these type of projects and possibly partner with people in the future. So, but before that, I just kind of wanted to catch up on some stuff. Last night was kind of, or yesterday was a bad day for the T-Bears. We lost a family member, so that was sad. But it was really cool. I wanted to share this story about my daughter. My daughter saw that I was sad and that the family was sad, so she said, "You know what?" She said, "You know what, Dad? I'm going to take you to the Disney Walk and I'm going to buy you dinner." And so she is so amazing. She's 22 now, so we went and oh man, I should have grabbed those pictures. I had some pictures from the dinner, and we went and we had we went to the Disney Walk, but there's the Disney Hotel there too, and they have a lot of restaurants. So we ate at I don't know, it was like a Hawaiian type place. So we had these burgers, and I know there's a lot of people that don't like pineapple out there, but they had pineapple on them, and they had teriyaki sauce, and I think it was like a Munster cheese. It was a real mellow cheese, and butter, lettuce, and onion, and tomato, and I don't know, it probably doesn't sound that good, but it was delicious. It was so good. And so we had the time of our life last night, just kind of walking around, hanging out, and just be thankful that we're together and that we're alive. So I'm gonna whelp up a little bit, but yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. My daughter is so cool, and my wife and I are so lucky to have such a killer kid. And they got me this. I don't know how you guys feel about pops, but this is DJ Rex from Galaxy's Edge, and so they got me this. And he used to like was the pilot of Star Tours, I guess. And so now he's a DJ at Galaxy's Edge in one of there's a bar like a cantina, and so it's got the little official collector stamp right here. So it's pretty cool. My daughter's like, take him out of the box. And I'm like, no, then it's not collectible anymore. So thank you guys for that. So, hey, Pope Fire. Thank you so much. Favorite part about Sunfire. What is my favorite part about Sunfire? That she's connected to the Titans, which is always one of my favorite. Weirdly enough, I was always more of a Titans fan than an X-Men fan. I know, pretty bizarre, right? But the other cool part is one of my favorite characters is Nightwing. So she's connected with Nightwing as well, and I think she's got a pretty killer backstory. So I hope that justified the $2 there, Pope Fire. Thank you so much. And hey, Pope Fire, Fire Goddess, something. Just saying hello everyone, and He's mighty tank ferret. Yes. So I wanted to talk a little bit about IPs and so what is an IP? An IP, as it relates to like comic books, is this. So anything that you've created yourself. So this is the black and white. So this would be my IP, and then this is Chrono Mechanics, which is also another IP that I've created. So I have some experience as far as those IPs, and trying to sell them and partner with other people as far as licensing ventures, film, TV, things like that. So I'm going to share some of that stuff with you guys later. I think I got all the intro stuff done. Oh, and I don't know if you guys will be able to see these, but as far as black and white, we got our black and white buttons in. So this is one of the stretch goals. So look at these. Look at this. The target with the yin yang. Taylor killed on the design. Look at that. Look at that. Just look at that. And then, this is the Greg Capullo cover. And then this is my cover with Kyle Ritter's colors on it. So I hope you guys can see it. I know it's a little small. But these were the stretch goal, or one of the stretch goals, one of the many stretch goals. And so we got those in. So we're still making progress on the black and white campaign. You know what? I got the camera up. I've been working on this morning. So here's a little sneak preview. This is the last page, and I should have it done by day's end. So I don't know how well you can see it because everything's on a delay, so I'm not seeing what you're seeing right now. So there's the first panel. It's kind of a splash panel. And then there's 3 other panels on the bottom. So Whitney, aka White, has been talking pretty cocky during this whole story, and so when push comes to shove, it turns out maybe she's not as bad as she thought. So the 2 panels, she's getting kind of compromised, and then Reed in the last panel, I don't know, it's pretty loose right now. He's saying stay calm, everything's gonna be fine, just trust the suit, and you'll be okay. And so that's my day after hanging out and talking with you guys. I'm going to start working on that. So I'm going to go over to OBS, and I am going to, I don't know, what should I do? Maybe, no, you know what? I got some other black and white stuff I'll share with you guys later. But let me, okay, screen share. Here we go. So I hope you guys can see this. This is an article from The Beat, and this is what I was talking about with the IP. So poor Rob, I feel his pain here. If you guys don't know, go to Rob's Facebook, Rob Liefeld. Don't go right now, or unless you can keep the tab open, and catch up a little bit. He partnered with some people a few years back, and he, in a nutshell, he lost some of his IPs in the business venture. So on his Facebook, he talks about that, and in this article on The Beat, he talks about it too. This is a pretty good interview, actually. There's a couple different people that are mentioned and interviewed here. So in a nutshell, Rob Liefeld created, over 25 years ago, Youngblood. It was the first book through Image Comics, and he put this book out, and it basically changed the industry. That, and then Jim Lee's book, and Todd McFarlane's, and what was it, Cyber? God, what was it called? What was Mark Silvestri's book called? Cyberforce. And and then there was Savage Dragon. There was a lot of different books, but Rob's was the first, so he was the one that took the biggest chance and put it out first. And I remember hanging out with Rob before we both broke in professionally, and he had Youngblood was his childhood like creation. When he was very, very young, he created this thing, and I remember seeing images and things even before he got his DC work on Hawk and Dove. So he'd been working on this thing and putting labor and love into it for a very, very long time, longer than you guys have seen publicly. So I remember there was a piece that he penciled, and I think he got, oh my gosh, who was it? It was the Superman guy to ink it. He did the main Superman book when I was working on it. The name will come to me. I can't believe I'm blanking right now. But yeah, he did some inks over it. It looked amazing. So Rob's been working on this for a long time. It's a labor of love. It's probably the nearest and dearest thing to his heart. And he made a deal. Yeah, I don't really want to read this interview, but yeah, he made a deal when he went to Awesome Comics, from Image Comics to Awesome Comics, and he partnered up with Jeff Loeb and Scott Rosenberg, which I'll talk a little bit later about, and John Hyde. And so what happened is they all split up, and I think each one of them got like 2/3 of the IPs. So I think Scott got 2/3, John Hyde got 2/3, and Rob got 2/3. And then they kind of split up. And so Rob had been working with these guys, even though he didn't own the IPs. He'd been working and still trying to put out books and things like that over the years. But I guess the deal reached, or a new situation came up. Where is this guy? Andrew Rev came into the picture. Apparently, you guys read this interview and this article, because you'll get more out of it than I am, because this is not what I ultimately wanted to talk about. I just wanted to give you kind of a backstory of where my head's at and how I got to this point to talk about IPs. But yeah, I think that Scott Rosenberg sold his 2/3 to this guy Andrew Rev, and that 2/3 had Youngblood in it and a lot of the major characters. So then this Andrew Rev is doing stuff that apparently Rob doesn't agree with his terrific productions, publishing. So I think this guy wants to start publishing Rob's IPs again, and there must be some kind of difference in opinion between Rob and this Andrew. So Rob is pulling out. Rob doesn't like this guy and doesn't like the direction that he's going in. And so Rob is kind of walking away from Youngblood and some of those characters that he created, that he loves. And so this is breaking my heart just going over this. This is like one of his children. And so, you know, these things happen, and sadly, you trust people, you partner with them, and stuff like this happens. So there's Rosenberg's Platinum Studios, which I have some experience with. And so, yeah, so there's that. There's the article. I think I'll leave this up and I'll keep scrolling. So if you guys want, you can read it as just a backdrop, because I don't know what else to do other than go back to the camera and you guys can watch me talking. So, yeah, this is the Beat article. So, like my title said, it's, cautionary talk about IPs. So my experience with IPs, I got an early cautionary talk way back before I really created anything, from Howard Chaykin. And Howard Chaykin he's done a lot of creator-owned properties and has a lot of experience with selling IPs and partnering with people and all those things. And so my roommate at the time was John Moore, which he worked as Howard Chaykin's writing partner. So they wrote together. So that's how come I was privy to a lot of this stuff. And I hung out at the Chaykin Studios and things like that. So I don't know how we came up with it, but maybe the deal was going bad or it had just happened. But Howard was was meeting with people about an American Flag movie. American Flag is his first comic that he put out a while ago, and it's probably his first big IP, and probably the one he's still known the most for. And so he was meeting with, Hollywood people. People were coming to him to try to get a movie deal made, and so he had, a lot of prospects, and he had one that was happening. It was moving forward. But what he had done is he had partnered with First Comics. So First Comics had partial ownership. I don't know what percentage of ownership they had, but they did have a stake in the IP. So in a nutshell, what Howard told me is he said that, you know what? I'm going to go back to the chat. He said that, let me go back to the chat. Where's the chat? I'm being silly now. Where is the chat? Chat live. Oh, where do I go? Oh, I know where I go. Hold on. I go here. Haha, I found it. Yeah. So, yeah, this is better. I feel connected to you guys now. I see your names here in the chat. So, yeah. So he told me. He said that First Comics. I don't remember the publisher's name or anything, but he was kind of negotiating counter to what Howard and his agent were negotiating for, and so it became kind of a crossroads. So this guy wanted certain things, Howard and his agent wanted certain things, and they just couldn't get it together. They just couldn't make it work. So the deal fell through because a lot of these Hollywood people and stuff, they don't want a lot of baggage. They don't want a lot of tension. They want IPs that are untangled and they don't have a lot of baggage with them. And so Howard told me, he's like, never give up any ownership on your IP. He said, don't do it. He said, because they can screw negotiation, because they can come in and that they can negotiate on their own behalf, and it might be counter to what you're negotiating for. So basically, Howard wants his movie made. Those guys don't care about Howard's creation. First Comics, they just want money. They want opportunity. They want money. So a lot of times the creator is more willing to work, or they're willing to negotiate differently than money people, or people that don't have a stake in the IP. Basically, they don't care. And so that they can kind of counter the deal and screw the deal over. So that's one thing. And I kind of came across that years ago with Black and White. So with Black and White, what we did is we started sending out, IP, like, hey, we have this book, to different producers, directors, Hollywood industry people. And so we got a couple nibbles, and one of them we got was from, I forget her name now, her last name was Blum, and she ran Film Roman, which were doing The Simpsons at the time. I think they're still doing Simpsons. And so she turned us on to her husband, which is Stan Blum. And Stan Blum is a licensor. He runs, or he ran Imagination Factory. I don't know what he's doing. He was pretty old at the time, so I hope he's still around. But anyway, so we ended up partnering with Imagination Factory, and Stan's resume was he licensed all of the Sylvester Stallone movies, so from Rocky on, and that he had early licensing deals with Lucasfilm on the first Star Wars movie. So all those cheesy lightsabers, if you guys remember 1978 or whenever the movie came out, those cheesy lightsabers that were just basically extensions on a flashlight, and those cheesy iron-ons with the Hildebrandt painting on them for T-shirts, just like the really kind of low-end stuff, but made him millions and millions of dollars. So we partnered with him. And I remember early on when we were first, negotiating and trying to work out all the contracts and stuff with this partner, and he wanted ownership. And so in the contract it kept saying, ownership. And then I was like, well, ownership for what? What do we get in return? And so then some money went on the table, and but it was very little money. And so I remember saying to him, why would we give up ownership? We own this. This is our IP. You're a money person. You didn't create this thing. So how about we just make it about money? So you don't get ownership of the IP, but we work it out as far as ownership, not ownership, but as far as profitability. So we gave him a higher percentage as far as profitability, and most of it would be like if it was film, he would get a producer credit and stuff like that. So we worked all those things out. And then he said, well, if I don't own anything outright, or co-own with you guys, then I'm not going to push this and promote it the way I would if I had more of a vested interest in it. And so, I was like, okay, I'm fine with that, you know. And we still ended up taking a lot of meetings, and we still ended up getting things done, and taking a lot of licensing meetings. But even with that, I tried to protect myself because I just heard Howard's, cautionary tale in the back of my brain saying, "Don't give this stuff up. Don't give it up," and I didn't. And what ended up happening with him, this is my cautionary tale, and this is why things can still go bad, is we were meeting with EA, and EA video games was early. This was 25 years ago. I think all they had was kind of sports games, and they didn't have a lot of IPs and things like that. So we were meeting back and forth with, I forget the guy's name from EA, and I even met, my wife and I met with some of the designers for the game, and what they wanted to do is they wanted to license Black and White, and they already had a game, but they just wanted to kind of put an IP over the game, and Black and White was close enough to the concept that it would have worked. And so at an early stage, when you create these things, you just want them to exist in various ways. And the game looked good, and I got along with the designers of the game. We were even talking about, they had some other ideas, and I was pitching ideas to them. We had a big dinner at San Diego. It's probably the biggest schmooze I've ever had. So it was the head of EA and the two different programmers for the video games. Man, I keep thinking my life would be so different if we could have worked this deal out. But so everything was going good. We were buddy. We were walking around the show with these guys and everything. And so at the end of the con and everything, we just said yes to them. We shook their hands, my wife and I, we shook their hands, and we said, yeah, let's do this. And so we thought the deal was kind of going to move forward. We had many meetings. We were all like-minded. We were all in sync, and everything was fine. And so then things aren't happening. So then I get a letter, an email back from the guy that, I wish I could remember his name, over at EA. He's probably huge now. I think he's one of the head guys that did, what were they called? Where you could the Sims game. Yeah, I think he was one of the integral guys in that later. And so he just said, deal fell through, blah blah blah. So we tried to contact him, and then he said, if you want the details, you're going to have to talk to your licensing agent, Stan Blum. So we're like, oh geez, what the heck? So we got a hold of Stan. We went up to Burbank. That's the worst part about all this stuff, is we don't live in LA County anymore, so we had to drive up to Burbank. It was a pain in the butt. And so we met with Stan, and then Stan was kind of being coy about it, and we couldn't get any real truth. So We went back to the EA guy and we asked him, like, because we must have just seemed like just so brokenhearted. He wasn't going to tell us the details, because I guess it's just kind of not what you do in these situations. And so he saw pity, and he explained the story. And he said, "Yeah, Stan runs Imagination Factory, which is an animation studio. They were doing Zorro, the animated Zorro show at the time. So this guy had a lot of connections, Stan, and could make things happen." And he said the deal was contingent on EA using Stan Blum's animation people to do the video game, to do all the designs and all that. And if Stan couldn't make that happen with EA, then the deal wouldn't go through. Well, we had no knowledge of any of this stuff happening at the time. So I don't know if this was unethical on Stan's part. I don't know what the legal, aspects are. If he was supposed to, because it's definitely a conflict of interest. At least it's a conflict of interest because he's supposed to be representing black and white, and he's trying to shoehorn his own interest in. And we found out these things happen all the time. So, long story short, black and white, the video game just did not happen. And like I said, it would have changed my life considerably, because the comics kind of fell through, and then video games just shot through the roof. So it would have been great, but that's what Stan did. And so even when you have contracts that you're not giving people ownership of your IP, things like this can still happen. So you have to be very, very careful when you're partnering with people and when you're doing these type of licensing deals or film deals. And it's just absolutely mind-numbing how many things can go wrong early on in these negotiations. So then one of the others is back on the Rob, Youngblood thing a little bit. Is there's a guy named Scott Rosenberg. And so I'm not going to say Scott Rosenberg's a bad guy. I don't know. I've heard a lot of stories, not all good. But Scott Rosenberg's backstory is he ran Malibu Comics. So Malibu Comics is the first, Image was an imprint early on at Malibu Comics. It didn't have its own publishing division. It was an imprint at Malibu Comics, and it didn't last very long because I think those guys got pretty smart and realized that they didn't need a publisher. They could be their own publishers. And so, but Rosenberg ran that company, and so I had worked with Rosenberg, on books. I think my big Rosenberg Malibu book was when Malibu, I think they were bought up by Marvel, and so there was a big crossover. So it was Avengers and something Force. I forget, Malibu had like some kind of super team. So I got to ink and do finishes over George Perez, man. You talk about a crazy dream come true. I got to do finishes over George, and on that Avengers versus Ultra Force. Is that, maybe it's Ultra Force? And so what was cool is it's a big splash page, and God, I should have got this too. I have this somewhere where black and white are featured in the splash page, and actually Howard Chaykin's flag are in there too. But George was nice enough to put our IPs in there, so that was very cool. Hey, Mitch, very cool. So I'm sure Mitch has all kinds of stories like this. This is epic, man. This is just a tip of the iceberg of the stories that I'm going to share with you guys. So yeah, so this was 15 years ago or something, where Scott Rosenberg. Oh, well, I'm still talking about Scott Rosenberg. Scott Rosenberg's big claim to fame was Men in Black. So Malibu Comics had the Men in Black franchise, and I think when Marvel bought Malibu, I think they got some kind of ownership of Men in Black. I don't remember exactly how that went, or if Scott had the deal with Sony prior to that. But Scott basically brokered the Sony deal with Men in Black. And so that's his big claim to fame. And also he created Cowboys versus Aliens. And so he got that brought to the big screen as well. So now we're going back in time. We're going back in time. So it was around the time where Scott created Platinum Studios, and so Platinum Studios was an IP company, and so Scott was. I don't think he was purchasing these IPs, you guys. I think he was. I gotta watch my wording. He was partnering without money. He was partnering with people like Rob Liefeld. I believe this is when this deal went down with Rob. Was the Platinum Studios time, and so Platinum Studios they contacted me because I had Black and White, and Chrono Mechanics I think had already come out at that time. So they wanted those two IPs. And so what Scott was doing is he was collecting IPs, but God, I gotta be nice here. It's so hard sometimes. He was kind of preying on the industry because the industry was kind of bottoming out. Like it was. Some people say it was a correctional phase. So like people like Rob and myself and some people that were making really good money in the mid 90s, like in 93, 92 to 95, 96. But pretty much by 96, it started its correction phase. So by 97, 98, it was not good. And I was already back at Marvel. I had already left because I knew that it wasn't going to recover and I couldn't make ends meet. In that, creator-owned area. So Scott Rosenberg was getting a hold of people that had IPs. I think he even had Top Cow IPs, because I remember seeing the list, because he sent me the list. And there were Rob Liefeld IPs there. There were Mark Silvestri IPs. I think that maybe even Witchblade was there. And so there were a lot of people that were partnering and giving him IPs. And knowing what I know about Scott, I'm sure these were exclusives too. I don't think these were like, they were just loaning them out to Scott. So if something happened, then they would work out a deal based on whatever that deal was. Like if it was a film deal, then, whatever was agreed upon in advance, that's what they would get. I believe that Scott had exclusivity to these IPs, meaning that Rob or whoever had a deal with Platinum could probably still go sell these things to Hollywood or publish these books, but they were definitely partnered with Scott, and that Scott probably. I think there was money in on the deal with Rob with Awesome Comics, but a lot of these guys, there was not money on the table. I know that for a fact because there was not money talked when I was talking to Scott about partnering or letting him have the IPs for Platinum Studios. And my question always was to Scott, and still is, because I met with him last year actually at San Diego Con, and we were talking similar things. He wanted Chrono Mechanics. And he still wants it, and because he knows it's killer, it's cool. It would make a great movie and a great video game. But I remember asking him, it's like, yeah, so we give you the IPs. You have now Chrono Mechanics, you have Black and White. So now what? He goes, well, when I take these meetings, I pitch them. I said, yeah, but you have 100. He's probably got like 500 IPs now. Like you have 100 plus IPs. This was then. What kind of representation are you going to be able to bring to like my little IPs? And he said, they're there. People can, producers and stuff can read down the list and they can read the little pitch and then they can decide. And I'm like, so you're not going to be actively pitching this stuff and promoting it? He's like, depends. So, I would have given up my IP for, I don't know how long the contract was for. It was, most of those things are 5 to 10 years, if not in perpetuity. And so, it didn't sound right to me. And I always have Howard Chaykin's, don't ever partner with people like this. Or just don't partner with people in general. Give up your IP because they can mess up the negotiation down the line. So I didn't do it then. So smash cut to now, and then Rob is saying that part of the reason the deal went bad with Youngblood and those other things is Scott Rosenberg sold his 2/3 to that Rev guy. So then this is in Rob's eyes a betrayal, and so Rob didn't get any money on the deal, I imagine. So it went to Scott. So Scott basically sold, the IPs. And so this is a little side note. I remember talking to Dave Stevens, RIP, when he first sold Rocketeer. This is how old I am, you guys. And when he sold Rocketeer to Disney, I don't even think he had points on the back end. Not that the movie did stellar, but I think it was a buyout. So I remember asking him, "What did you get in the deal?" He said, "I was able to buy a new house." I'm sure the house was a killer house, but this is 25 plus years ago, maybe even 30 years ago, when we had this conversation. And so a killer house 30 years ago in Southern California, 300, 400, I don't know, maybe a $500,000. $500,000 for Rocketeer? For Rocketeer? That's nothing. That is nothing. Even then it was nothing. And so he was happy because he said, "I was able to hold on to publishing and print." So he could still make his comic book. You know what I mean? Like, that was a plus for him. So this is how humble we are, you guys, in the comics industry. This is how humble, and this is why I wanted to talk to you guys about this. These IPs are worth millions and millions of dollars to people. Hollywood needs us. They need people like us to make these things, to come up with these ideas. But at the same time, we shouldn't be overly humble about it, to the point of not knowing the worth. And we should make sure that when we go into these negotiations, we're not giddy and we're all happy that they're just talking to us, because that's the problem. The problem is we go in very humble and they exploit these situations. And smash cut to Platinum Studios last year when I took the meeting with Scott, it was the same deal. It was pretty much the same deal, that I would have had to give up ownership for representation. And so a lot of publishing too, like if you want to publish with different publishers to get your IP out, what a lot of publishers ask for is they ask for ownership of IP. So to get you a guaranteed page rate, most of the time it's a guaranteed page rate against back end, which is it's also not that good. So what back end means is you end up having to pay back the money that they give you up front off the profits, and then profits start after that. So not only do you have to pay back the money that they gave you up front, but you also gave them your IP. So be so careful, you guys. There are a lot of publishers that are like that, and the reason Image Comics is cool. I know that a lot of people, it's a crapshoot any way you look at it when you're publishing your own IPs. But at least Image doesn't ask for ownership. They ask for a flat fee. You pay that off, and then profits start from after that. And you own your IP. So you can still go on and sell it to Hollywood or make, toys or whatever licensing deals you want to make. Sorry, I was taking some water. Yeah, so you got to be really, really careful with this stuff, you guys, when you go in. And always get points. Yeah, royalties in perpetuity. Yeah, exactly. You have to. But a lot of, oh gosh, you guys, all this stuff's flooding back to me. I had a conversation with, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm always so bad with names. So it's the guy that created The Simpsons. So this is years and years and years ago. And I was talking to him about how these, because I did the Hollywood Shuffle a couple years ago, animation, stuff like that. If anybody in the chat can help me out with the Simpsons creator, I would greatly appreciate it. And so Matt Groening. And so I talked to him at San Diego one year, and this is when people walked around and you could actually just talk to people. And I was asking him about, because I had Chrono Mechanics out there. He thought it was a great idea. Keep in mind, you guys, this is no, this was about the Futurama time, but I think it was the first year Futurama had just come out. So he's like, "This is a killer idea. This is a cool idea." And so we started talking, and I was talking to him about selling and doing different things like with the IPs as far as animation, things like that. And he said, just know your first deal, you're going to get reamed. He said, everybody does. And he said, I got reamed on Simpsons. He said, the only reason I did okay with Simpsons is because it was a juggernaut and he made the money over years. But he said his first deal, when he came in with his second IP, which was Futurama, to Fox, he made that deal. He said he made more money on the initial sell of Futurama than he did all those years prior on The Simpsons. So these things happen. They usually exploit newbies like ourselves, and so these things happen. But you still have to be smart, and you still have to make sure that if you are going to sell and you are going to partner with people, that you trust them to carry these things through, or you get a crap ton of money up front, because the money might make it worthwhile. Another IP story. Oh my gosh, I have so many of these. I was talking to J. Scott Campbell about a Danger Girl. And so he sold Danger Girl, and I think it was exclusive to a film company. And the only reason they bought Danger Girl is it was the same company that was doing Charlie's Angels. And so what they do as well is they buy IPs, film companies, just so they can bury the competition. So Danger Girl was a cool IP. The book was selling like, crazy. It was popular. It could have rivaled, Charlie's Angels. So they bought it and they buried it. And these things happen. So you have to be very, very careful. So like I said, it's usually two things for me. It's either a major, major buyout, which going in for your first time, unless you have some kind of credentials, you're probably not going to make a lot of money. Or you make sure you partner with somebody that you really feel loves the IP and is going to follow through with it. Like, oh my gosh, what was it? The Crow. What was his name? I forget the Shelley. I forget the writer's name, but he saw merit in the comic book. He wrote a screenplay treatment and then sold it in Hollywood. And so that guy really loved the comic. He saw the potential. So he went in there and he sold it. And that was a great partner between James O'Barr. God, I wish I could remember the guy's name, the writer's name. And they went in there and they made a great movie. But everybody involved was on board. You know what I mean? It wasn't just a cash grab. It wasn't just... They had a great idea. They were in love with the idea, and James O'Barr. Yeah, thanks, Arthur. And it's crazy. And everybody has to decide for themselves. Like, if these guys seem like they're going to carry these ideas through, if they're going to follow them through, or I think I talked to John Malin, or a major buyout. But I'm telling you right now, going in like just black and white, or if Malin was going to sell his IP. I don't think he'd get that much out of it. Just because John Shirley, thank you, James. Oh my gosh, that was bugging me. And John Shirley is a killer dude, man. I met him once. That guy is awesome. He writes novels and screenplays. That dude's bad. Shut your mouth. And so you gotta really be Alex Proyas. Yes. All those names are coming back to me. Okay, so I covered Platinum Studios. Oh, and then there's this. Okay, and then there's these guys. Okay, there's these guys that are like sort of attached to things. So there's this guy, Sean Patrick O'Reilly from Arcanum Studios. There's a they're a publishing company, and I think he had some success with Clockwork Girl. I think was made into an animated cartoon. He's Canadian, so there's I think he partnered with a Canadian animation company and did Clockwork Girl. There's all kinds of because when we almost partnered with the Canadian animation company on Chrono Mechanics and Hack Shack Studios. In a nutshell, they wanted us to develop comic books, and then they would sort of try to sell my IPs to Hollywood, but they weren't guaranteeing anything on the table. And my agent just said, you'd be creating comics for them and developing their IPs in form of comics, but they weren't guaranteeing anything in writing, meaning they weren't putting anything on the table. So they weren't going to put animated trailers together for Chrono Mechanics. They weren't guaranteeing any of those things. So we just couldn't work it out. So we didn't end up going through with that. But this guy, Sean O'Reilly, he runs a publishing company, and this is what I'm talking about with like ownership, where they want ownership. And so he came to me and wanted Chrono Mechanics. I think a lot of these publishing companies, small publishing companies that have a hand in Hollywood, realize that Chrono would make a great film. It really does. It's a great comic book, but it would make a great film. And so he contacted us, and then we started going into the contract negotiations. So he was sending contracts over. And so we started getting these contracts. And the first one was, my wife wrote policies and procedures at Northrop. She knows technical manuals. She knows technical writing like nobody's business. And so we were getting these contracts, and the nearest I always just say they're bastardized contracts, meaning they didn't have a lawyer write them up. They grabbed little bits and pieces of legalese and put them into a contract. And sometimes it's a little bit more obvious than others. So this wasn't, the first contract wasn't really bad. It just kind of had like an odor of like a bastardized contract. And so there was, what was the word he used? It might have been in perpetuity. So it was one of those things where it was like he would own. No, it wasn't in perpetuity. It was ownership, that he would take ownership for a guaranteed page rate to publish Chrono Mechanics. So that's what it was. It was one of those deals. And so I said, no. I mean, you would own the IP so I could get a page rate? I'm making a page rate at Marvel and DC right now. I don't need this. I'm not that desperate. So he came back with another contract, and this thing was more and more kind of iffy as far as the way it was put together. The paragraphs just weren't seeming like they were even written by the same person. So, and in this one, he said he wanted publishing rights in perpetuity. So this is another way, you guys, of getting ownership. So, yeah, they don't say we would own it, but when they're saying publishing rights in perpetuity, or God, what was it? Publishing rights? It was something like that, or just rights in general in perpetuity. I don't think it was publishing rights, just rights in general. It's the same thing as saying ownership, because for that, in perpetuity is forever. So, it's pretty much giving your IP over to them for a guaranteed page rate. So I was like, this is just, I told Sean, I was like, this is just another way of you owning it outright. And I said, can we, I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want you to waste my time. You're not going to get ownership. So I was finally on the phone. I was very upfront with him. I said, you're not going to get ownership. Ownership is not on the table at all. So can we work it out? He's like, yeah, we could work it out. So I get a third contract, and I forget what Weasley way he tried to worm his way into owning, Chrono Mechanics outright. And so then I was just like, no. I said, we're at a crossroads. I said, how badly do you want this IP? He said, I want it. I said, can we turn this over to our lawyers and let them work it out? And so then he said, absolutely. And then he said, who's your lawyer? And I said, was it Dave Alpert at Circle of Confusion. He got a little nervous, and so then he's like, okay. So then I contacted Dave. Dave was too busy. Dave is like Walking Dead crazy. That guy is like a mover and shaker now. So he's too busy. So I forget who we ended up working with as far as an attorney over there at Circle. And he said, absolutely not. I cannot with good conscience, like even work this contract out, let alone, say you should sign it. So I tried to get an attorney name from Sean. Sean did not give me his attorney's name. So our attorneys were not able to work it out. So my attorney ended up trying to work out a contract that would work for me, sent it to Sean, and then that was it. I never heard from Sean again. So we outclassed that guy, and we exposed him for what he was. I don't know if this guy is shady. I don't know anything. All I know is my dealings with him. And then when I was reading these contracts, I had this vague, like, this reeks of Platinum Studios contracts. So I did a little snooping around. Sure enough, Sean Patrick O'Reilly worked at Platinum Studios. And so Platinum Studios, these were bastardized Platinum Studios contracts. So you guys just have to be smart, sniff this stuff out, think for yourself, and know, kind of going into it, these guys do not have your best interests in mind. They just do not. So you have to go in savvy. And even if you have to hire an attorney, most attorneys, good attorneys, you probably only have to talk to them for half hour, an hour. So pay their hourly and go and find out where you stand with these contracts. Have them look over these agreements. And kind of steer you in what direction to take, because it's beneficial. Because you don't want, poor Rob, man, you don't want that kind of stuff to happen. And also, I should do this as a parting shot because there's these cool things, you guys. I hope you're all sticking around because I want to show you some black and white cool stuff to end this stream. But even Marvel Comics, the big, huge, IP company they are now, Marvel Entertainment, they made some bad business deals going in, and it was because they were lean and hungry too, just like we are with these IPs right now. And they went into Sony, and they got themselves into long-term problems with Spider-Man. So the reason, they kind of lost Spider-Man. In a nutshell, they lost the rights to do a Spider-Man film. And so even these bigger companies, you have to partner, but with bigger companies, but you still have to be really, really smart. So Marvel went in not looking at long-term potential, and they made some bad deals for the long term, kind of like Rob with Spider-Man and the Spider-Man universe. And so the reason they were able to work it out with Sony, but only because Sony's weak right now, and Marvel and Disney are strong. So Sony's like, we need quarterly profits, man. So we need to do something, and we're not quite able to do it on our own. And the Marvel, film franchise is strong. So they partnered, but also, I don't know for sure, but the reason Mary Jane and J. Jonah and some of these supporting characters are changed drastically is because I don't think Marvel has full rights to the Spider-Man franchise. I think they have to negotiate per character. So I think the reason MJ is MJ and not Mary Jane, and some of these characters aren't being used, and J. Jonah is not J. Jonah Jameson, and it's not I forget the newspaper now. Anybody in the I should know this. The newspaper they work for. It's not the Daily Planet. I know that. The Daily Bugle. So so they had to change these IPs. One, they can license them themselves, so they can kind of rebrand these things, which is probably going to make it harder for Sony if they want to use Mary Jane and stuff like that. but they changed some of these characters, so now they're more like, this is Marvel's version of Mary Jane or MJ. This is Marvel's version, Disney version of J. Jonah Jameson, and the villains and all the other the other stuff that goes with it. So this is why these things happen. And so just know that no one's immune to it. Everybody, can get screwed. And like, what's his name? Matt Groening said, everybody gets it in the where, their first sale. So Marvel with Spider-Man even took it in the where. So these things do happen. So I hope this helped a little bit. If there's anybody out there that's independent minded and is thinking not just comic books but possibly licensing beyond that, and why shouldn't we? First and foremost, make good comics, you guys. That's the first thing. Love what you do, which I do. There's nothing else I would rather do than sit in this room alone and draw comic books, which is what I'm going to do after lunch, and hanging out with you guys. But yeah, there's nothing I would rather do is to create comic books. I look at anything else as like it's just icing on the cake. And it is doable, you guys. They will take meetings with you. This stuff does happen. If it happened, with me, it could definitely happen with you guys. So have a good IP, have good ideas, and just be very, very careful when you go in and you decide that you're going to partner with people, because a lot of times it's inevitable. We can only take the comics so far, and even with the Indiegogo and the crowdfunding that we're doing, in a way we're partnering with you guys. So you're the private investors, you're the producers of these IPs, and without them, without your support, we couldn't do this. So we are partnering, and we're making promises, and we're giving back to you. So it is kind of a business deal, that arrangement that we're having with the IP supporters on Indiegogo and Kickstarter and the like. So just know that, and so just be very careful. And like I said, I hope that helps. So let me see if I can screen share. No, I don't want to go there. I want to go here. So it's artwork I want to show you. So hopefully you guys stuck around for all this. Hopefully it helped. And here you go. Taylor just put this together, and this is pretty killer. So I hope you guys can see this. So this is the trading card. This is the black and white trading card. I hope you guys can see this. And let me go back, if this will work, to here, and see if it's going to show up, because everything's on a delay. I'm just double checking. If you guys see the trading card, please let me know in the chat. It'll be faster this way. All of this stuff's on a delay. So Arthur Brown says, whoa. So yes, you guys can see it. So very cool. So this is, how do I do this? Okay, so this is the front side of it. Yeah, it's killer, you guys. Look at what you did. And this matches, I don't know if this matches all of the cards, the Comicsgate cards, but this, from what I understand, this is the layout everybody's using. It's kind of based on a Marvel trading card layout, and I know that Lone Star used this layout as well with the stripes. Taylor did a cool thing where she made it like white and black on the background around the card. But this is kind of the same layout I believe everybody's using. So all the Comicsgate cards should be uniform. So it's kind of like they're collectible as, a group of cards. So I'm hoping that that's all working for you guys. And let me see. Can I do this? Wait a minute. I'm not being able to open these tabs. Photoshop. Oh, no. Oh, no. Why can I not do this? So am I screen sharing? Let me go back. So there's the front side of the card. I do have the back side, and I have something else I want to show you. Let me see if I can do this. Okay, let me go. Okay. So I go back to OBS. You know what? Maybe if I try it through screen share. Let me see if I can do this. Screen share. Photoshop. Yes. Okay. So here's the front. I hope you guys can still see this. So here's the front of the card. Here's the back of the card. We are on a little bit of a delay. So here's the back of the card. So they are pretty powerful in their mech suits. So this is a pretty formidable team here of Black and White. So Taylor put this together. She's got the killer shot from one of the panels. It worked perfectly for the back of the card. We got the Hack Shack Studios logo in the bottom. The Did You Know fact I thought was cool. Actually, that's kind of a spoiler. I'm not going to read that. Haha. And I hope it's too small that you guys can't read it either. So then we have this. So I need to promote a little bit of my next campaign, which is Chrono Mechanics. And it's got a tentative title of Retrofit. I may keep the title, I may not. But I've been working with the great Narwhal. And so I couldn't help. Narwhal and I are trying to work out special effects within his style for the Chrono Mechanics. There's a lot of special effects used with their tech. So it's kind of low res, but you guys can maybe see it a little bit better here. This isn't finished. It's mostly just the effects. So the effect of Doug being lifted in the air, and then Zin here powering down from his Chrono Mechanics work suit. So there's the special effects that Narwhal was able to put together. Pretty cool. So in the description, there is a pre-launch page that you guys can go to, and please sign up. I have a lot of people going to the page but not signing up, and I realize there's not a lot on the page yet because I'm still kind of building the stuff, and I don't have the cover fully done yet. And I've been really busy trying to put the finishing touches on Black and White. But next week, I have a few more loose ends on Black and White, and then it's full-time onto Chrono. So this is going to be my next book. It will come out a lot sooner than Black and White. 2/3 of the book are already done. I just have to pencil and ink the last, and then I guess just tighten up the script and the dialogue for 10 pages. So, and then come up with a cover. There's going to be alternate covers too. I can't wait to announce the 4 artists that I have. I just got one in from a very, very impressive comic book artist. I can't wait to share that with you. And so yeah, Chrono is moving forward, and Chrono is designed to hopefully financially give me time to do the next installment, Volume 2 of Black and White. So Black and White 2 is going to take a little bit more time than Chrono. So I'm hoping that I can get Chrono into your hands a lot quicker, and that I can move on to Black and White relatively quick, so I can get some advance time. Like, I didn't put a lot of advance time into Black and White Volume 1, so it was pretty much working at DC, and then trying to YouTube, get that going, and then trying to launch the Indiegogo campaign and figure out how all that was going to work. So that took quite a bit of time there. So I already have a lot of that worked out. So it shouldn't take me as long, but I would like to get a major jump on the artwork for Black and White. The overview of Volume 2 is already written, and a lot of the page, I'd say the first probably 10 to 15 pages are blocked out pretty good. I just need to get to penciling on that. So let me see if I can go back. I hope all this is working for you guys. Let me see. What did I do here? I need to go back to my webcam. Yes, because I have a Hacks chat live, but that probably doesn't represent this thread very well, or this stream. So thank you guys so very, very much for hanging out. I hope that the little teasers could get you interested in Chrono Mechanics. That thing is going to be a blast, and it's so completely different from Black and White. It is a fun action adventure, time travel story. Probably a lot, it's got the sensibilities of like Looney Tunes. So I pitch it Looney Tunes meets H.G. Wells. So it's a pretty broad comedy, pretty silly, but a ton of fun, and I can't wait to get these characters out there again, and for you guys to see them and enjoy them. So I believe that's everything. I'm looking at all my tabs and seeing if I can figure out how to get out of here. So I believe I go back to here. I go here. Let me see. I'll read the chat real quick. Thanks, James Dean, for a lot of support in the chat. I know you're a creator, so I hope that helped out a lot. I know Arthur Brown is an artist, and I'm sure he's got something going as well. So if I could help you at all, there's Slick Jimmy too. He definitely has some killer stuff out there. So yeah, I'm going to take off. You guys enjoy your Saturday. Thank you so very much. I'm going to go up and end the stream. And so yeah, once again, there's a link to go to the pre-launch page for Chrono Mechanics. I am going to be bringing new stuff to that site soon. And don't let the sparseness set you off. Please sign up. We got some killer exclusives, and those exclusives are only going to be for people that sign up. Just yank the plug. Yeah, I will just yank the plug. So thanks, guys. Talk to you later. Have a great Saturday.